In today's episode, the Land Rover 110. Hello and welcome to Quarterlights, your car brochure channel, the channel that brings you car brochures from around the world for the 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s. So if you're interested in this niche subject, you're interested in cars, you're interested in car brochures, maybe you're just interested in the memories these lovely older cars bring back, then please do consider subscribing. It is all completely free. So yes, today we're going to look at quite an interesting brochure actually. It's the Land Rover 110 brochure, a very, very early brochure actually for the Land Rover 110. Personally, I've got a little bit of a history with Land Rovers. A couple of weeks ago, was it last week, we looked at the Land Rover Discovery, and I did have a Land Rover Discovery at that time, and we're looking at the Land Rover 110. Now, I never had a Land Rover 110, but I did have what came later, or how it got rebranded as the Land Rover Defender. And the sort of shelf at the back, all these things kind of like mean something. They're not actually as random as they may appear. And if I reach back here, there is actually a picture of my old Land Rover Defender. Here, let's throw it on the board, you'll be able to see it better. So here's my old Land Rover Defender 90, the short wheelbase version, or 952 UCR. You can't help but look at the UK reg checker. I had a look at it. It looks like everything ends, I think it's 2013, I think the no tax or MOT from that date. So whether it's been used purely as an off-road vehicle or it's now sadly gone, I guess we will never know. But very low mileage when I bought this one. Previous owner was actually an estate. I think it came from one of the historic castles, and it was just a backup vehicle. So I think I got it with maybe 20,000 miles on it. And actually it was the vehicle, one of the last vehicles I had in the UK. Also one of the longest owned vehicles I had as well. One of the few vehicles I actually missed. Now the Discovery I had, actually the Discovery before this actually, was nothing but trouble. It had oil leaks even from 17,000 miles. I was driving around one day and the electric window just came down and I had to get a new electric motor, and that only, like I say, from 17,000 miles, it was nothing but trouble. Well, it wasn't nothing but trouble. Engine and gearbox was fine. It was all sorts of the niggly problems. Now, when I got this, and incidentally, this is the 300 TDI, so the same engine, never had one lick of problems from the day I owned it to the day I lost it, because sadly, sorry for knocking the camera, sadly I did write it off, although it was only written off as in insurance terms, so it went to auction and I'm sure somebody carried on using it after that. But yeah, it was a great vehicle that. Anyway, I'm kind of like waffling a bit, but it does kind of make sense because we're looking at what came before the Defender. Really, these were the Defenders, but they kind of like rebranded it in, I think, 1990. When it first came out, it was the Land Rover 110 and the Land Rover 90. Well, really, it was just the Land Rover 110 because you had to wait a couple more years before the 90 came out. So I guess in theory, if you wanted a short wheelbase Land Rover this time, you were still having to get the Series 3. Now, like I said, very, very early brochure this gives you the clue by saying the new Land Rover 110, Land Rover's new Land Rover, but it is very early, so I'll just look at the date. And the date is in this brochure code numbers at the top here, LR for Land Rover, and then it does say 2.82. So February 82 is exceptionally early for a Land Rover 110 actually. I think officially 1983 was when it was actually launched. So yeah, very early brochure this one. This one's also showing a dealer stamp as well, and that dealer stamp, if I just move the camera up, I'm just going to manually Apologies for it jerking around there. James Windsor and Son, Mansfield Limited. So yeah, a little bit of a dealer stamp there as well as a bit of a Brucey bonus. And at the top of the front cover, it kind of like shows how it's introducing this. Like I say, no short wheelbase, only long wheelbase versions available. On the left would have been your county station wagon, the most expensive one, but kind of like the one you really wanted. You know, a tiny little bit of extra soundproofing, I think it had a bit of graphics, and you also had sort of like the Alpine roof on there. I always like these very early county station wagons. Next to it, we've got a long wheelbase pickup, then we've got a long wheelbase hardtop, and then very interestingly, we've got a long wheelbase soft top. Just a bit of a reminder, you can actually buy these soft top versions. So that's a little bit interesting. You kind of like forget about that soft top version of the 110. Anyway, let's open the brochure up, have a look inside. Now this particular brochure isn't a particularly long brochure, but it is kind of like one of my favourites. I've had this a very long time, this brochure. Top here, it's showing a little bit of a county station wagon in its natural environment. It looks like it's towing a horse box. We'll come back to that image, I'm sure. We'll start here. We'll have a look at the text first. Pushing forward the world's frontiers. Apologies for the little bark. That was Oliver making his presence known, but let's push on. So yeah, pushing forward the world's frontiers through superior design and technology. No other company has amassed as much experience as Land Rover in the world of four-wheel drive. Yet still, some conditions remain a challenge conquered by the new Land Rover 110, blending the strength, versatility and then just before we get to the rest of that, let's get like a look at the interior. So yep, 3 seats up front. Now you notice with these early ones, they've just got a sliding window one rather than a hand crank window. A bit of a carryover from the Series 3s. And then a little bit of a dash shot, and actually on my much later Defender, I think that dash was pretty much identical to that. But yeah, moving on. Durability of the Land Rover with the ride and on and off-road capability of the Range Rover achieved maximum traction with greater comfort, manoeuvrability and stopping power. The new model, the result of an extensive program of research, design and development, further extends Land Rover's dominance of the four-wheel drive market. The 110's traction and ride are literally unbeatable. Its durability surpassed that of every other four-wheel drive vehicle. Make no mistake, the 110 is a thoroughbred, a 4-mid, a bull leader for the world's 4x4 vehicles to admire. Ultimately, in an on and off-road vehicle, there's no greater comfort than a smooth, stable ride. In the 110, this is provided by the proven Range Rover format of long travel coil springs, laden or unladen. You won't find a more comfortable, all-purpose four-wheel drive ride, but even this can be bettered by fitment of optional self. And then it kind of gives us no pictures. Just pause 1 second before continuing. Interesting looking at this rear image actually, because these early ones were a little bit different, and they had this sort of like unpainted handle at the back, and rather than these being painted steel, these corners, they were aluminium. So I actually preferred the early ones, I must admit. And then mud flaps certainly look like a carryover from the Series 3. And then we get a look at the front end, and again, rather than a painted steel black front bumper, we've got this aluminium unpainted bumper here. But moving down, but if you remember, it was saying by the fitment of optional self-energizing ride leveling unit. So that's certainly one of the big things from like a big improvement from the Series 3s to these 110s. Rather than having leaf springs, we've now got coil springs. Rather than having switchable 4x4, it's now a permanent four-wheel drive. So in a lot of ways, a big step forward, but at the same time, yes, they were fantastic off-road, but they still weren't a particularly enjoyable vehicle to drive on road, particularly if you threw them on the motorway. They were certainly still very tiring. Moving on, it says the Land Rover 110 interior makes it a pleasure to drive. There's a new instrument panel, dashboard and steering wheel, new controls, better all-round visibility, light interior trim and moulding roof lining, plus a new high output heater with the option of integrated air conditioning. I must admit I've never actually seen one of these with the air conditioning option in the UK. Anyway, before laying down the 110's winning formula, Land Rover studied the market thoroughly. The market demands and attributes of all alternative vehicles were exceeded. The research and development phase was speeded by extensive building on proven engineering So just a bit of a recap. We did start over here, if you remember, and I had to unfold this page to continue reading. So we're kind of like continuing along here now. There's a few different images, but I will double back and have a look at the top before we do turn back again. Anyway, it continues by telling us, while exploiting every facet of the latest automotive design technology available, computer-aided design coexisted with the designer at the drawing board. More than 80 prototype vehicles were produced, more than 1 million grueling miles were covered on scientifically formulated concrete pave, calculated to destroy all but the toughest suspension on unmade roads, soft sand, tortuous jungle tracks and high-speed road surfaces. Prototypes were exposed to corrosion tests with salt spray baked on and sealed in, articulation tests, incline tests, camber angle tests, wading tests, and then it shows you this little bit of a diagram showing we've got a disc brake and coil springs. Then shows a look how sort of like the fan controls are, and then carries on by telling us, in fact, everything that denotes a Land Rover and more. Before leaving the Solihull assembly facility, each Land Rover has to complete a computer-controlled rolling road test. To drive the 110, engines were developed to produce more torque and power. The choice, a 2.25 litre petrol, 3.5 litre petrol or 2.25 litre diesel, each one renowned for its reliability. The 2.25 litre models have new 5-speed gearboxes with single lever selection of high and low range gear ratios, which effectively gives 10 forward and 2 reverse gears. Permanent 4-wheel drive is standard on 110s. For 2.25 litre models, selectable 2 4-wheel drive is available, so that's pretty unusual. That's certainly a carryover from the third gen, or series 3 I should say. Moving on, it says 110 pickups have a payload of over 1.25 tonnes and every 110 can tow a maximum of 4 tonnes. The 110 models are immediately recognisable by their deep one-piece windscreen and wheel arch body side protection mouldings, which simply spring back unharmed when deformed, and new colour schemes. A look at inside the county station wagon, and a reminder, if you did sit right at the back, you weren't actually seating facing forward, which was always a bizarre thing. But we can see those sorts of like extra sort of alpine lights on the county versions. It ends by telling us they all look stylish, but more important, they're all made by Land Rover. That really is saying something. Then we got a few of the all-important off-road things, you know, ground clearances and angles, turning circles and wading depth. But let's return to these top images. So yeah, you've got this county station wagon towing a horse box. Also a reminder, talking about new colours and that, but what a 70s brown colour that one is in. Look at the pickup. I think these were high capacity pickups, I think they used to call them. But like I say, again, interesting that the front window is sliding at this time. There's another one showing the wading depth, and look at the diagram, that is your limit unless you equip them with snorkels, etc. Side view of your brown county station wagon. Well, it looks like your hard top model. This looks like your standard pickup, that won't be your high capacity one. And then again, it looks like your long wheelbase high capacity pickup again. Anyway, let's turn the page. So effectively, we're actually turning the page back again because we didn't really get to see this picture very well. So the main picture is actually another county station wagon, although this one's in green. I don't know why, they always look best in green in my honest opinion. But let's turn the, oh, we've got more actually. If we just move the camera down, we've got these x-ray shots of your county and then your high capacity pickup as well. So then when we close the page again, we get the technical specifications. Sadly, it looks like they printed the technical specifications in the smallest possible print known to man. But we will see if we can pick some key points out. I don't think we'll be able to read all of that. So at the top here it says technical specifications, and then we've got these rather interesting little diagrams. So 110 now standard. Coil springs, a 5th gear. Interesting, we've got a 5th gear because it's pretty early on for 5th gears, I think. So nice that they introduced that. Front disc brakes now, a revised interior, improved steering, climbs 1-in-1, reduced turning circle, increased payload, and an aluminium body. So down the side, it starts by talking about gross weights for the various models. We're not going to look through all that because it's going to be impossible to show you on camera. But what is interesting is at the top, it kind of like sets out the models. Like I said, they're all the long wheelbase 110s. So it starts by telling you about the soft top version, telling you can have a 2 1/4 petrol, 2 1/4 diesel, and that big V8. Same engine choices for the pickup. And indeed for the hardtop and the station wagon, and indeed for that high capacity pickup. Below that it tells you about wading depths and that sort of things, towing weights, but we kind of like looked at them in the diagrams. Then it talks about the brakes and steering. It looks like standard is manual steering. It looks like you get optional power steering at this time as well. And then I guess it tells you about brakes, front and rear, and then it tells you at the side, you know, disc drum setup, recirculating ball, worm and nut. And then if it's power, it's worm and roller, but that's quite an antiquated steering system, really. The only other thing that is really going to be able to pick up on camera and then we can see is kind of the engine. So yeah, you can get a 2 1/4 petrol, which was a 2286 cc engine, maximum power looks like 74 bhp, 4,000 revs per minute, maximum torque looks like 120 pound-foot at 2,000 revs per minute. Then we've got another petrol, this time a 3.5 litre petrol engine. Similar sort of figures on there. And then, which is 3528 cc, that one. And then your other engine choice was your diesel, which was a popular one for sure, which was a 2286 cc diesel engine. Unfortunately, it's very strangely set out, so it is hard to show on camera those specifications. And then really I just want to show you that date again. So yeah, it's a very early brochure for the 110, this one, showing it as February 82. But there you go, a lovely little look at this 110 brochure. I always thought it was nice how they moved the game on from the Series 3 Land Rovers. It was very natural. They still looked like Land Rovers, they still behaved like Land Rovers, but they were slightly improved. And of course, this was the basis to what became the Defender, which was the last of the proper Defenders before, I don't know, everything went a little bit crazy with Land Rover and I lost interest. But yeah, there you go. A lovely, interesting brochure. Let me know what you think, and we'll end, as we always say, each week, that, you know, if you're not done already, please do consider subscribing Subscribing is all completely free, whichever sort of channel or whichever YouTuber you look at. Subscribing is completely free. There's really no bad thing about subscribing. It costs you nothing. You can subscribe to as many channels as you want, and it really keeps you in touch with the channel and also supports the channel to grow. So please do consider subscribing if you've not already done so. Please give a thumbs up. That also really helps. I try and promote what you can do to help YouTubers without costing you anything at all. But thank you so much for watching today. I'll throw a couple more videos at this side here. I kind of forgot what I was saying there. Yeah, well, I'll put another couple of videos at the side here if you want to continue viewing, or you can just go to the Quarterlights homepage on YouTube. We've got over 800 episodes, so I'm sure there are episodes that you might not watch yet if you're a regular, or if you're new to the channel, I'm sure there's cars that you're interested in. But thank you so much for watching today. Please do take care. All the best, and goodbye.